I never thought I'd one day have the courage to reveal who I truly was, because for so long, I hid behind masks I built myself. I became an expert at playing characters, at inventing versions of myself that could seduce, convince, or manipulate anyone who came near me. While the world saw a fragile, suffering woman worthy of compassion, inside, I was a desert, hardened, empty, and totally obsessed with the feeling of power that arose when someone trusted me. I didn't just steal objects. I didn't just steal money. What I took from people was trust, and that fed me like a drug. I sought the sparkle in the eyes of those who believed in me, because at that moment I felt in absolute control of someone's life, and that became addictive in a morbid way. Over time, lying ceased to be a strategy and became my identity. I observed the behavior, the pain, the vulnerabilities of each person, and then molded my story to fit exactly what they needed to hear. I learned to cry without feeling sadness, to tremble my hands to appear vulnerable, to invent illnesses to elicit empathy. Everything I did had a purpose: to manipulate. The more I deceived, the more I believed I was invincible. I repeated that I was too smart to be caught, that I would always have the next city, the next victim, the next story, as if the whole world were just a chessboard and I the main player. I never cared about the consequences because I thought, arrogantly, that nothing could reach me. Inside me, there was a phrase, I, repeated to silence any trace of conscience. When the weight of guilt tried to creep in, I would say, if God exists, He has more important things to do than worry about me. I spoke of this with disdain, as if it were possible to hide from the truth, as if I had the power to disappear before the eyes of the Creator. But with each successful lie, each deceived heart, each tear I caused and ignored, something inside me died. My soul became so dark that I became incapable of feeling love, remorse, or gratitude. I thought I was in control until the day death ripped off my mask and God showed me that He had always been watching. When the truth finally caught up with me, I discovered that the price of lies is higher than anyone imagines. I know this testimony has already touched you in some way, so stay and subscribe to the channel. Leave a like so this message reaches more people. What follows is not an ordinary story. It's a warning. The life I chose within crime didn't begin with explicit violence. It began with small concessions I made to myself until those concessions began to shape my character. In the beginning, it all seemed like just a harmless game where I tested the limits of manipulation to gain small advantages. I invented emotional stories that evoked empathy and received in return money, favors, or access that didn't belong to me. Every time someone believed me, I felt something growing inside me, like a silent intoxication that made me believe I was smarter than the world and that I would never pay the price for my choices. It was as if I had discovered a secret and irresistible formula to get everything I wanted without any effort. Over time, this feeling turned into an insatiable hunger. I stopped practicing small manipulations and began to construct true characters with their own identities, like masks I wore as the occasion demanded. When I needed to elicit pity, I assumed the role of a vulnerable woman carrying a sad and convincing story. When I needed to gain trust, I became someone spiritual, sensitive, attentive, a person who offered prayers and promised emotional reciprocity. I analyzed every word spoken and molded my speech so that the other person would believe I was exactly what they wanted to find. The money started flowing in quickly, and along with the money came a dangerous feeling of invincibility that completely numbed any sign of guilt. While I flaunted expensive clothes, frequented luxurious places, and lived experiences that seemingly demonstrated freedom, an emptiness grew inside me that I couldn't silence. I slept in beds that didn't belong to me and woke up surrounded by things that didn't represent my true identity. The world believed the image I projected, But when I was alone, I realized that each achievement was just another layer of lies covering the fact that I no longer knew who I was. I believed I was manipulating sin, but I discovered that sin was manipulating me, leading me to an existence where I became a prisoner of my own mask. I thought I was in control of the game, when in reality, I was being led to checkmate. Have you ever felt like something was controlling you even though you thought you were the one making the decisions? Comment. I don't want to be controlled by sin. I always thought evil began in a grand way, with something that shook the world around it, but that wasn't the case for me. Evil entered silently, in a seemingly simple gesture, in a decision that could have been avoided if I had listened to that small voice inside me that tried to pull me back to sanity. That day seemed ordinary, but today, looking back, I understand that it was the day the spiritual door opened and I allowed something dark to enter without resistance. I was inside a bank branch, and my eyes met a frail woman holding an envelope with such care that it seemed she was holding her own life. She trembled with fear, as if the world were too big for her, and when our eyes met, I saw exactly what I needed: fragility. I approached her gently, in the sweetest voice I could muster. I feigned concern, offered help, touched her hand tenderly, and introduced myself as a good Samaritan sent to make her day easier. She smiled confidently, a smile I didn't deserve, a smile that should have made me give up, but instead inflamed the dirtiest ego I carried. I guided that woman to the ATM, reading each command as if I was saving her day, and the instant she entered her PIN, something inside me rejoiced. It was as if an invisible force had whispered in my ear, "Now's your chance. Grab it all." When I finished transferring the money to my account, ready to leave, she held my hand with a strength I never expected from someone so frail. Her eyes, which had been gentle before, were now filled with a disconcerting certainty, and with a voice so firm it seemed not to come from her mouth but from her soul, she said, "God is watching, daughter." That phrase wasn't just heard. It pierced me like an arrow. My body reacted with a shiver that made me feel exposed, naked, observed by something greater than all my tricks. I tried to laugh. I tried to ignore it. I tried to pretend it didn't affect me. But something started to follow me from that moment on. It was as if the shadow of my choices had come to life, and I felt my conscience trying to catch up with me while I struggled to stifle any trace of regret. That same night, lying in an expensive hotel bed, surrounded by everything I thought I wanted, that phrase echoed inside me like a sentence I couldn't silence. God is watching. I tried to convince my mind that it was just a passing guilt. But deep down, where no deception can penetrate, where no mask can hold, I knew that woman hadn't said that by chance. It was the first warning, the first touch from heaven telling me I was going too far. But I ignored the warning. And when we ignore the voice of God, the silence that follows can push us straight into the abyss. And it was precisely in that silence that evil found space to take over everything within me. After that day at the bank, something changed inside me, but not in the way it should have. I felt the warning, I heard the phrase, like a spiritual arrow piercing the center of my chest. But instead of retreating, instead of stopping and reflecting, I did the exact opposite. I decided silence by force, any sign of conscience. I made lies my shield and contempt my armor. I simply turned up the volume of sin to avoid hearing the truth. I developed a dark skill. Whenever a pang of guilt arose, I immediately sought another blow, another manipulation, another person to deceive, as if the act of hurting someone had become an anesthetic for my own pain. I began to believe that feelings were weaknesses that hindered my evolution, so I did something that, today, pains me to admit. I turned off empathy. I no longer cried, even when I saw someone begging, pleading for help, desperate. If I was about to be exposed, I would turn the tables with frightening ease and make the person feel that they were to blame for doubting me. I made lying so natural that it became part of my body language, my smile, my gaze. I discovered that when the heart hardens, it sickens silently, without noise, without blood, without apparent wounds. But the soul begins to rot from within. When I looked at someone suffering because of my actions, I didn't see a human being. I only saw an obstacle between me and what I wanted. I became so cold that I experienced a morbid pleasure in seeing desperate people trying to understand where they had gone wrong, when in reality, the mistake was entirely mine. I started laughing at situations that should have provoked compassion. Every time I saw someone emotionally destroyed for trusting me, I interpreted it as a victory, as proof that I was in control. But there's something no one tells you about sin. It doesn't destroy life all at once. It destroys it from within, layer by layer, tearing away everything that makes a person human. When I laughed at the pain of others, a part of me died. When I ignored repentance, repentance ignored my cry for help that was yet to come. I was so blind, so intoxicated by the feeling of power, that I didn't realize my heart no longer belonged to me. I thought I was free. But the truth is, I was being chained. And when the soul becomes insensitive, God doesn't need to shout. He allows the silence to speak. It was in that silence that something began to draw closer, as if the consequences were taking shape. And I felt, for the first time, the weight of a presence that was not of God. I always believed I had control over everything, that my intelligence and coldness were enough to keep any consequences away from my life. However, when indifference becomes routine, life starts to demand its due. That's exactly what happened the day everything fell apart. I was executing yet another con, like so many others. My self-confidence was so great that there was no longer any fear, no longer any caution, because I truly believed I was untouchable. However, that afternoon, something that seemed like just another planned move turned into an ambush. People who were previously just unknown faces became witnesses, and those witnesses became direct accusations against me. I was arrested, handcuffed, and taken away like an animal that had finally been cornered. At the police station, I still tried to use my soft voice, my fake tears, my made-up stories, but nothing worked, because sometimes God doesn't allow any lie to be enough to escape the truth. I was taken to a cell, and there, for the first time in years, my persona lost its power. It was as if I were naked before my own reality. I tried to convince myself that this was temporary, that I would soon find a way, that nothing could stop me. However, inside that cold cell, the atmosphere was different. The air seemed heavy and dense, and the more I tried to breathe deeply, the more I felt as if something was squeezing me from the inside. Days later, a sharp pain shot through my chest, as if something were tearing me apart from the inside. I tried to scream for help, but no sound came out. My heart was beating so fast it felt like it was trying to escape my body. I felt a suffocating heat rising up my neck and, at the same time, an absurd cold in my hands and legs. I tried to stay conscious, but the ground seemed to close in on me as if the cell was spinning. When I was finally taken to the prison hospital, I could no longer move my own body. Lying on the stretcher, I heard distant voices, lights passing overhead like confused flashes. The pain in my chest became unbearable, and amidst the rush of the nurses and the accelerated sound of the heart monitors, something inside me simply shut down, as if my heart had given up fighting. In that final moment, I had only one certainty. No lie can save someone when death arrives. I used to think death was the end, but I discovered it's just the door through which the truth reaches us uninvited. When the monitor stopped beeping and silence replaced the constant sound of my heart, there was no warning, no preparation, just an abrupt cut between being there and no longer being there. The sensation wasn't like falling asleep, because sleep is gentle, it's natural, it's peaceful. It was like being ripped from myself. In a single instant, I no longer felt the weight of my body, I no longer felt the rhythm of my heart, and the air which I had previously desperately sought ceased to be necessary. It was as if something pulled me out, as if my boundaries dissolved and the physical world ceased to be a prison. Suddenly I was standing, although my mind couldn't comprehend how I could be standing when I had clearly been lying on the stretcher just seconds before. The scene before me was desperate and surreal. I saw a motionless, pale, lifeless body, and only after a few seconds did I understand that that body was mine. I approached, intending to touch my own face, but when I tried, my hands pierced what had once been my skin. The sensation was terrible, as if I were made of wind or smoke, because I had no substance. I tried to speak, tried to ask for help, tried to scream my name, but nothing produced a sound. My mouth moved, my voice was non-existent, and the urgency to be seen transformed into absolute panic. I saw doctors working frantically. Defibrillator, chest compressions, orders being given urgently. I was so close, I could feel the warmth of their hands passing through me. And yet I was invisible. I was witnessing my own death and couldn't interfere. The feeling of powerlessness was suffocating, because at that moment I discovered that there is no manipulation, no lie, no voice that can negotiate with the spiritual world. The arrogance that had accompanied me for years dissolved when I realized I could no longer control anything. Suddenly the atmosphere began to change. The hospital room started to become distant, as if it were being pulled away, as if the scenery was dissolving, or as if I were being sucked into another place. The floor disappeared, the walls vanished, the sound of the heart monitors transformed into a silence so profound it felt weightless. It was an absence of life, an absence of light, an absence of God. I tried to fight what was happening. I tried to hold on to anything. I tried to scream for mercy, but there were no hands, no ground, no direction. Just a constant movement pulling me down, as if gravity had become spiritual and I was being swallowed by something I couldn't identify. The sensation wasn't of free fall. It was of being dragged from within myself, as if destiny was pulling me to where I truly belonged and not to where I imagined I deserved to be. It was at that exact moment when darkness began to breathe around me that I realized something or someone was coming toward me. I thought I was heading nowhere until I felt the presence of someone whose authority pierced even the darkness. The darkness that enveloped me was not merely a lack of light, it was the absence of everything that gives meaning to existence. I couldn't locate the ground. I didn't feel walls. I didn't perceive direction, and time seemed to have ceased to exist, as if I were suspended in an absolute void where nothing responded to me and nothing reacted to my presence. I tried to move, but I didn't have the body for it. I tried to breathe and realized there was no air, and the sensation that dominated my consciousness was that of being present without truly existing anywhere. At first I tried to believe that it was a delirium caused by death, a kind of mental confusion that occurs when the brain loses the ability to comprehend reality. However, the longer I remained in that void, the more I realized that that darkness was real, substantial, and conscious, almost as if it had a will of its own. Then suddenly, without noise, without displacement, and without any perceptible transition, the darkness began to recede, not as if it were being pushed, but as if it had been forced to give way to something infinitely greater. A light appeared before me, but not a blinding light, rather a revealing light. It didn't illuminate the space around me, it passed through me, and where it touched, the masks I had worn my whole life began to crumble like dust. I had no body, yet I felt exposed in a way I had never experienced in the physical world. When the light took shape, I knew, without needing any explanation, who was before me. My soul recognized Jesus even before my thoughts could formulate that conclusion. His eyes carried no accusation, hatred, or contempt, but a truth so absolute that it destroyed any attempt at defense. I wanted to speak. I wanted to explain my motives. I wanted to justify every lie I used to build my life, but no words found a way out. Before. The truth. Every lie loses its voice. Then he spoke, and his voice didn't come as sound, it came as awareness. He said that I hadn't just stolen money, I had stolen destinies. In that instant, I understood that it wasn't him judging me. It was me, facing the truth I had spent my whole life running from. When the light began to fade, it wasn't like entering a sudden darkness. It was like losing something essential that I didn't even know I needed. The presence of Jesus filled everything within me with such intense truth that when it began to diminish, I felt as if a part of my existence was being ripped away. I had faced weapons, threats, and people dominated by evil, but nothing compared to the silent terror of feeling God withdrawing. As the light diminished, my consciousness became clearer, revealing truths I had buried my whole life. I realized I wasn't simply falling, I was descending. It was as if I were being pulled to a place where no hope could exist. The silence that enveloped me didn't bring tranquility, it brought oppression. It was heavy, suffocating, as if the very emptiness had weight and tried to push me back into myself. A deep chill began to pierce my soul, not a physical chill, but a chill that ripped away any illusion of identity I was still trying to preserve. In that place, there were no masks, no fabricated versions, no character whatsoever. Only I remained, facing the truth I had avoided. Faces began to emerge from the darkness. People I had manipulated. People who had trusted me. People I had used as instruments to feed my vanity. I didn't observe their suffering. I felt it. Every emotion they experienced because of me settled within me with a pain that seemed to cut to the soul. When I tried to justify my choices, when I tried to blame life or the past, the voice of Jesus broke the silence. It wasn't an accusation, it was a revelation. He said that I had chosen the lie, even when he tried to show me the truth. That's when I understood. Hell is not a punishment imposed by God. Hell is the natural place for the soul that rejects the truth. It's living forever with who you are inside, without masks, without excuses, without his presence. When I was pulled from that darkness, it was as if a gigantic force pierced everything that held me captive and broke the weight that was pushing me down. The sensation wasn't of ascending, but of abrupt return, as if life had grabbed me by the core of my soul and thrown me back into the body I had left behind. The light didn't come from outside, it came from within, and when I opened my eyes, the world didn't seem the same. I was in the prison hospital, surrounded by human voices and the insistent sound of the machines. The air entered my lungs with such violence that it felt like a slap. I didn't know whether to scream, cry, or vomit all the pain I had witnessed. All my soul could do was cry. The nurse beside me was startled because I awoke with a scream that seemed to come from somewhere else, as if I had returned from the depths of an abyss. I cried so much that my body seemed to tremble inside, and my lips uttered words I wasn't consciously choosing. I kept repeating, "Forgive me," without knowing exactly who I was asking forgiveness from. When I managed to breathe, I realized I was alive, and this awareness didn't bring immediate relief. It brought responsibility. I understood that this second chance wasn't a prize. It wasn't a purposeless miracle. It was a summons to start over and repair everything I had destroyed. When I was released, I sought out the people I had hurt. Some listened to me, others didn't want to look at me, others walked away without saying a word. Each of these reactions was justified. I wasn't there to receive forgiveness. I was there to humbly acknowledge my past. For the first time, I discovered true repentance. the kind that doesn't expect applause, that doesn't seek reward, that humbles oneself. I understood that repentance doesn't erase what I did, but it cleanses the soul so that I don't revert to who I was. My second chance began when I finally recognized that I couldn't buy it, I couldn't manipulate it, I couldn't deserve it. She came because Jesus decided to give me back my life. I didn't return from this experience to be seen as an inspiration, nor for people to pity me or romanticize my story, as if it were a journey of overcoming with a brilliant ending. I returned because I was sent with a warning, and carrying that. Warning is heavier than any physical chain I've ever faced. When Jesus allowed me to return, I understood that it wasn't so that I could rebuild my reputation or recover what I lost, but so that I could tell the truth I never wanted to hear while living a lie. The truth is that no one deceives God. We can manipulate people, invent versions of ourselves, construct narratives that serve our desires, but before Him, there is no mask, no excuse, no argument that can justify the destruction we cause when we choose to live without truth. I spent my life believing I could control everything, that I had power over time, over people, over my choices. But faced with eternity, I discovered that life is too short to be spent trying to prove something to the world while losing our own soul. The lies we tell ourselves are the most dangerous because they keep us blind. They make us believe that we still have time, that we can still change tomorrow, that there will always be another chance. I used to say, later I'll change, later I'll stop, later I'll regret it. And what I didn't realize is that every time I postponed regret, my heart hardened more. When death came, I was so far from God that I no longer knew how to return. Today, if I have anything to say, it's this. Hell doesn't begin when we die. Hell begins when we choose to live without truth, when we prefer the comforting lie to the confronting truth. God doesn't send anyone away from the light. We are the ones who walk away from it. Each time we choose sin and ignore repentance, there is no sin too great for God to forgive, but there is also no forgiveness possible for those who insist on believing they don't need it. Repentance is not humiliation, it is liberation. Time is not guaranteed. The next chance is not promised, and life doesn't belong to us in the way we imagine it. I learned this the hard way anyone can. If you are watching this video now, don't ignore the warning. Don't harden your heart like I did. Don't wait for pain to acknowledge the truth. If there's something inside you asking for change, don't silence that voice. It's not just conscience, it's God calling you back. If this message resonated with you, write in the comments, I choose the truth. And before you leave, click on register. This channel isn't just about content, it's a calling. You're not here by chance.